Hey, and welcome to the Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, that fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, still the incomparable Dan Rubenstein for about 8 minutes before we hit go live on this podcast.
Yeah.
I witnessed live. Many of our folks who have access courtesy of verballers.com witnessed live your deliberations in real time over whether or not to get Carly Rae Jepsen tickets while she is playing her tour out there in the Midwest. Dan, how are you today?
I'm good, and I'm still very much in that consideration mode to make it a Super Pop Saturday in early November as Carly Rae Jepsen appears in the Chicagoland area. But I'm good, Ty. I went for a run this morning. I thought on what kind of Saturday this Week 4 Saturday might be and the different types of games we might be seeing and the different narratives surrounding these teams. And so a good amount of vitamin D, blessing my skin and being right now, Ty. So I am especially wonderful and grateful to be here with you this morning.
Are you going sun-kissed Saturday?
That'd be cool, but no. Would you like to know my nickname, or do you want to get to that after any sort of housekeeping?
Let's get to that momentarily.
Okay.
This episode, all of our episodes, driven by our good friends over at Geico. Many of you are listening to this here episode on a Thursday throughout the course of your workday, maybe on your commute, maybe at the gym, maybe while you're doing household errands. I don't know. Don't forget College Football Thursdays. It's our live spot. It's over on Spotify. It is 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West. Everybody can listen live, can tune in live, can join in the chat, come up on stage with us. Ty versus the world last week. Ty went 5-0. Ty is this guy right here. I'm pointing to myself. Yours truly. Come at me. Come at me this week, tonight. College Football Thursdays. I want to get your picks.
I love that.
I want to get your college football takes, just in general. This doesn't have to be a contentious relationship. Just want to have your takes here as we talk all things college football live on Spotify, Dan. We don't like to waste too much time on this show, right?
It swings by the episode, but sure. In theory, that's our goal.
Dan, Ty, help. I need picks of the week.
Let's just dive right in, baby. Week 4.
Yeah.
Woo! Week 4 already. Moving quick.
It's a good one.
We like to do what we call the Saturday naming ritual.
We do.
It has taken shape over the course of time. ESPN will do this like week 6 or so. Week 8. Have a separation Saturday, a shutdown Saturday. They've got a couple that they rotate between as we get a little bit deeper into this thing. We have adopted their naming policy and applied it to every week of college football. Didn't start out that way for us either, but we just enjoy it. We enjoy that
It's silly.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
We enjoy that creativity, that element of things here on the show. I've got a name that I'm going to fire out first because I feel strongly about it. I do.
I'm open to it.
I'm going through the games this week, and it occurred to me that during my banner performance last week, not just 5-0 Ty versus the world, but 7-0, more importantly, with the picks that I posted on Twitter, which is like, hey,
true.
You do that on Twitter, you're royalty. But I thought back to what made that week so successful. What made it successful for me was just reaching down deep, getting in tune with my core beliefs, my principles that have driven me so far through the first 3 weeks of the college football season.
Okay.
Trusting that intuition. And so I said to myself,
Okay.
what are your core principles of week 4?
Oh, we're going here.
What are the occult forces that govern the altar of Ty?
Okay.
I'm trusting my gut for the
Steal
second
Dan's
straight
bit
week.
Saturday?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I'm trusting my gut for the second straight week. I'm going on the half-baked conclusions that I formed through 3 weeks of the college football season. This week for me is I can't even say.
Do it.
I screwed up my own name.
Septuagenarian Saturday? Is that where you're going?
No.
Oh.
Supposition Saturday.
Supposition. So supposing different things this Saturday.
Not to be confused with suppository Saturday, which is altogether different.
There's a crossover. There's a Venn diagram. Continue.
Supposition Saturday for me.
Okay. But you don't have an adjoining sound.
Unless you'd like one for Suppository Saturday, which again, the evil cousin of this Saturday label for me. No, I don't have any.
Okay, so my thinking with the Saturday, which I think is pretty good, but I don't have that kind of vocabulary. What I'm thinking for this Saturday, because we're at the point of the season 4 weeks in, where teams are starting to self-scout. They know what they do well. They know what they don't do well. They know what their opponents might be able to take advantage of or not take advantage of. There's a certain amount of avoidance. Let's see if we can avoid being embarrassed by our pass defense. Let's see if we can avoid being embarrassed by our lack of ability to stay on the field on offense. And one of the premier ways of avoiding conflict, enemies, things coming at you, be it a T-Rex, be it gunfire, be it arrows, be it somebody just chasing you relentlessly. The serpentine movement, Ty. Serpentine. Do you know what a serpentine chase looks like? The serpentine strategy of running away?
You run back and forth.
Running back and forth. Maybe this week your defense is the issue. Maybe this week your offense is the issue. You're just trying to be serpentine to avoid that embarrassment.
Serpentine, shout! Serpentine!
Serpentine! I have serpentine Saturday. But we can go with supposition Saturday. But I wanted to more action
go with
word.
either.
Yeah, that's true.
We can go with either. I mean, we can go through this whole slate of games and decide whether or not we're going based on supposition or serpentinian logic.
True.
Just made that word up too.
Serpentinian logic. Okay.
What's our window of opportunity, by the way? Do we have one this week?
I guess early. I am pretty hesitant about avoiding certain windows this week. But yeah, I would say just in terms of depth of obvious, interesting matchups, probably early. What do you say?
I think early is probably the answer, but I share your hesitance with respect to week 4. It's always the quiet ones, isn't it?
Always.
It's always the quiet ones. Always the quiet ones.
So what does that mean about this one that seems jam-packed?
I just feel like there aren't any obvious headliners. There are a lot of interesting games that have cool storylines attached to them.
Right.
And I've been doing this long enough to know that these are the weeks that get a little bit weird. And so that's where I'm at. That's why I'm hesitant to take too much time off. But if you got to go see cats, if you got errands, something going on,
sure,
I guess do it early.
Yeah. I mean, the early matchups are what? The early matchups, I know we're going to start with, the headliners and everything like that. But if you are going to catch up via some sort of DVR service or something, you have Skillet early, of course, TCU, SMU, but Baylor, Iowa State, extremely big pickleball potential.
Clemson,
Wake, I think, is a fascinating, interesting game. If you're around a TV, that's must watch. It's probably the big screen game. Maryland, Michigan.
Duke, Kansas, come on.
Duke, Kansas is great. Maryland, Michigan, in that we think Michigan's good. But they've played like a 2008 Baylor schedule early on. I don't remember when Baylor was playing. Maybe a 2011, 12, 13 era Baylor, like nothing non-conference schedule. Duke, Kansas, Maryland. It's a fun window. It's certainly fun.
Let's dive in.
Okay, let's
dive in. Let's start with that early slate on ESPN2, 12 noon Eastern, 11 Central. It is Baylor at Iowa State. Iowa State now a 3-point favorite, Dan. These lines have updated since I sent you the doc, so listen closely as I go through. A fair amount of line movement, to be honest with you, and I think that only underscores the fact this could be kind of a wild week. But Iowa State now favored by a field goal at home. I want to talk to you about pickleball offenses.
Yes.
Because this is your term that you have coined here this season.
Yeah.
Neither one of these teams generate or allow big plays, which to me has pickleball written all over it. This is like watching a pickleball match on YouTube, this game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. I did like what we saw from Richard Reese on the Baylor side last week. 19 carries, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns. I have been beating the drum for a good long time now that Baylor has to replace that production that they lose with Abram Smith gone. Maybe Richard Reese can be that guy. I don't know. We'll have to see if he can continue that level of production against the remainder of the schedule. But either way, they're going to need more of that the rest of the way, whether it's from him or from somebody else. I do not have a strong lean in this game. My sense, if I'm just supposing, my sense is that Iowa State has more ways to win.
Okay.
And they don't quite have the problem the way I believe Baylor does as they try to search for their playmakers on offense. Do you agree with that? Or am I off base?
Well, I just think if we're associating both of these teams with the pickleball term, I think it's more excusable for Iowa State, given that they've played what we believe to be a top tier defense in Iowa's defense. That some of those underlying numbers, that they're not super explosive yet, because Iowa did such a great job of silencing the majority of this offense for like 58 minutes, essentially. Whereas Baylor played BYU, which just gave up a ton to Oregon. And I think BYU's pretty good, but I just think the pickleballness of Iowa State in the inability to get downfield and everything is sort of shorter. I think Iowa State is a more complete team, and it's in Ames, is it not?
It is in Ames.
So
correct.
If I believe Iowa State to be the more evolved team, and still that they have a couple playmakers on offense, even with as much as they lost, I'm still, I think, a bigger believer right now in the Clones than in Baylor. In Ames, more ways to win. Give me Iowa State to cover.
Yeah, I'm on Iowa State as well, and I say this not because I'm openly rooting against Baylor. That's not the case. I love Dave Aranda. I think he's great. I'm not convinced Baylor's all that good. Okay,
right.
I'm not convinced they're all that good, and I do think that Iowa State's got more ways to win. So I think I'm with you.
Okay.
Give me Iowa State minus the 3 at home. At home is hopeful. Moving on, 12 noon, ABC. This is a game you said is fascinating. It's Clemson, now a 7-point road favorite.
Slow Mesh Saturday.
On the road.
Yeah.
At Slow Mesh Saturday at Wake Forest. I tried to come up with different reasons why I should pick Wake Forest here. And the best reason I could come up with was that Clemson plays NC State in a revenge game next week.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's some look ahead here, but even that seems like a little bit of a stretch to me. I think people have been sleeping on Clemson. Do you feel that way?
No, I think people have a wary eye on Clemson, that they're a sort of understood entity, that they're not what we perceive the Clemson of like 2014 to 2019 to be, 2020, like in that range. Yeah. And we're just looking at Clemson as really good, but now a tier down from the best of the sport because of their offensive struggles and the changes on the coaching staff.
And the changes. The change part, I think, is pretty big. But hell, even our Baller top 10 poll dropped him down to 7th. I dropped him to 7th.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not immune from this either. I do think the offense has some kinks to work out. And I think unless they figure that out, there's going to be a loss somewhere along the way against one of the better defenses on the schedule.
Right.
I just don't think this is one of those better defenses. This is Wake Forest. And Wake with Sam Hartman, Wake with the way that they run the slow mesh, the way that they execute on offense. They're an interesting team that's going to win a fair amount of games. But defensively, they're not stopping Clemson. They're not really stopping much of anybody. I expect that we're going to see a lot of Will Shipley in this game. Do you know that he gets a first down 31% of the time he runs the ball?
I did not know that. Good for him.
Will Shipley is very, very good. Will Shipley is still underrated as a college football player. I think if they can get him going, that opens up space down the field for DJU to maybe work the ball down the field, which is something they desperately need to prove they can do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the main thing I'm watching for. I think they win this game regardless, but I am watching to see if they can get Will Shipley going, and then if they can use that to generate some sort of downfield passing attack. If they can't do it this week against Wake, I have real questions about whether they can do it next week against NC State. NC State, for their part, has not been great on offense either, but NC State's a better team than Wake Forest. So I am watching this from two different perspectives. First off, are they going to win and cover? I believe the answer is yes. I'm picking Clemson. Secondly, if they can get that going, if they can prove that they can build some momentum going into NC State week, then that makes that matchup a little bit more interesting for me. But Clemson on the road, 7-point favorite. Give me the Tigers to win and cover.
Yeah, I like the Tigers as well. I think they're 10 to 13 points better here. And this was one of those games. They beat them last year, did they not? Clemson beat Wake? Yeah, comfortably.
They beat them last year by like 20 points or something, yeah.
So my thought is basically, right now, this year's version of Wake Forest is Liberty. And the most recent evidence we have is that Wake Forest is Liberty-ish in that they are going to score points because at times this offense can seem unstoppable against a lot of teams. But the defense isn't there They survived Liberty by surviving a 2-point conversion at the buzzer. Did they not?
Yeah.
And even if we're down on Clemson's offense on a high level, I still don't think we're talking about an average defense in what Wake Forest is presenting to them. They've done a good job getting off the field this year, which is a nice sign that things are improving. That even, when you're giving up points, people like that, you can figure out how to get off the field quickly at times. I'm not there with Wake. I hate going with a road favorite against what I still think is a good Wake team. You got to throw me that defense as a home dog. You got to throw me that defense. And I know that there are pieces that have improved. I know that there are times where they seem improved. But if you can run the ball against Wake, it's just such an uphill battle when you can control the ground, you control the clock. So I'm taking Clemson by a couple touchdowns here.
Yeah, what I like about this show every week, and this is God's honest truth.
Yeah.
I jot down notes. I have a general sense in most cases where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And then after talking it through with you, I tend to firm up my opinions a little bit.
I've been
more.
very bad against the spread this year. No, I know.
But
talking through the logic helps.
But I think I'm with you. I think Clemson's like 10 to 14 points better. I've got it at like 38-24.
Here's the other
somewhere
thing.
In that range.
Yeah, here's the other thing. Clemson was always going to take a little while this year to fully get comfortable with two new coordinators, two first-time play callers in Brandon Streeter, and now the name escapes me, the new defensive coordinator. I can picture him very specifically in my mind. You can look up his name. I apologize. Clemson needed to play bigger games to start the season for me to memorize their coaching staff. That they are going to be a team that gets more comfortable in their own skin as the year progresses. And right now, by the end of September, I think this is going to be a nice time against a nice defense to start progressing against. That's all.
Wes Goodwin.
That's it. Wes Goodwin. There it is.
Wes Goodwin. So we agree. 2 games in a row. Let's go to 3:30. The CBS game. It's Florida at Tennessee is a rivalry game. Tennessee's favored by 10.5 points, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Give me your read on this game, because you know the drill on this show. We throw out the records.
Always.
In a rivalry, it doesn't matter what week it is. We threw out the records in week 1.
Yes.
When it was Pitt against West Virginia. The records, the suppositions, the half-baked conclusions, everything goes out the window in a rivalry. But I feel like we've got two teams that are drastically different in this matchup. So I'm curious where you're at.
I think Tennessee covers this. I'm kind of down on Florida at the moment. Florida's in a space of, what exactly would you say that you do well here for me, for Florida?
Like a Tom Smikowski.
A little bit.
Say you do here.
Yes. So that to me is a bit of an issue. Now, I'm not fully sold on Tennessee as a complete team, as a team who can play 4 quarters on defense. We saw Pitt take advantage. I think Pitt's a good team. I'm just not there with Florida. I'm just not there right now with what they allowed last week to USF, with the seemingly halt-filled Anthony Richardson experience of as soon as he looks promising, then he has real trouble making plays downfield. I just think in this environment against Tennessee, a team, by the way, if they're 7 to 10 points better, they're going to leave starters in just a little bit longer, right? The emotion of this matchup and also the recruiting implications of being able to say, oh, yeah, we just beat Florida by 3 touchdowns in our own house. I'm sure it's a big recruiting weekend. So I'm going to need to see otherwise from Florida for me to be a believer on the Gators in the road, in the Gators on the road against a team where on a certain level, you're going to have to score 30, 35 points probably most weeks to beat Tennessee, right?
I think so.
And I don't see Florida occupying that space. So, yeah, I'm going Vols.
So you're describing a situation for Anthony Richardson, essentially halt and catch ire.
Oh, God. I regret using the word halt because there was nowhere for me to go with that. I had no rhythm with the word halt. But
sometimes we just talk ourselves in the corners.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
That's a reality of being me. So, well, I'm going Vols. I'm going Vols comfortably here because I think there is a lot of pent-up emotion on the checkerboard side.
On the checkerboard side. Yeah, I mean, the Florida situation is really interesting because Anthony Richardson, obviously, week 1 against Utah, goes out there and wins. And as you would expect, you beat a top 10 team. Suddenly, everybody is talking about Florida. Could they be for real? I was saying it. I was pretty high on Florida coming into the season. But each of the last 2 weeks, he's gotten progressively worse. Yeah. And it's not a stretch to say that Florida could be 1-2. could be 1-2 after the near miss last week against USF. The other story, and you alluded to it, that folks aren't talking about because Anthony Richardson has sucked up so much of the oxygen in the room, Florida's defense has not been that great this season. If you look at the success rates against the pass are very average. Against the run, they're really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, this is still a team that's in transition with a lot of inconsistency. And much like you described with Clemson, how it was always going to take a little while to maybe set in and figure itself out naturally, I've been reading these advanced efficiency numbers long enough to know an inconsistent team that's in transition when I see one. And that's what the numbers speak to on the Florida side. Even through 3 weeks of the year, it comes through loud and clear to me that Florida is still figuring this thing out in the fly. So I'm going to go Tennessee too, even though this is a bigger spread than I expected for a rivalry game.
Right.
The Vols are just more of a finished product at this point. And if you're going to match them up against a team that is inconsistent on defense, trying to figure itself out on offense, that is not a formula for a team that's going to beat Tennessee, especially in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So I've got it again. I think we agree again here, which is a little bit alarming. Either we're both really right or both really wrong. Something like 35-20 Tennessee.
Well, isn't it also, this is an older term from the show, isn't Florida like a prime LOR candidate, the luck running out, that the way that they beat Utah, then great, win your games, whatever, and the way that they beat USF, that, and we'll get to this with a couple of other teams, we were like, it's not a sustainable way to compete. That if you need that sort of missed wobbler of a bad snap field goal, which, I don't know, 15 feet away from beating Florida, like if you need events like that, last second interception in the end zone to beat Utah, the further we get from week one, the less I care about week one. And maybe that's just because I'm an Oregon fan and I'm writing off the Georgia game. But there is something about a team's ability, if we're going to say the biggest difference between a team is between week one and week two, that just as we get closer to the end of September, week one just means very little to me. A great win, take it in a vacuum. It was awesome that Florida was able to get it done. But for basically every team, if they played against a real opponent in week one, however good they looked, if they weren't able to fully sustain it, however bad they looked, and they don't look as bad, I'm throwing away a lot of what I care about from week one. And so I think I'm doing that with Florida in this instance.
Okay, we agree again. It's 3 games in a row.
Yep.
It's unprecedented. Here on the Verbal. 3:30 ESPN, Texas minus 6.5 points. This line has gone up on the road at my beloved, my ever so gumpy Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Yeah.
This is one of the games for Texas Tech where they are not catching an opponent in a letdown spot or a look-ahead spot.
True.
And I factored that in. I did factor that in. I am biased towards Texas Tech, if only because I've been on them all year, like all calendar year, right? Not just this season, since like February. So where are you at the Battle of Texas?
Weirdly enough, I'm feeling better about the Tim DeRuyter Texas Tech defense than I'm feeling about, and it's a backup quarterback situation. There's some underlying things that I like, underlying things that I don't like about Tech. I'm going Red Raiders here. I think there is something. Again, if maybe this is a sustainable Saturday, right? The things that are not sustainable, and talking about what Florida is or is not able to sustain, there is something about like, well, we hope Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson can be literally everything for us against everybody until Quinn Ewers comes back because of Hudson Card's health and the downturn that the Texas passing game has taken since they've turned to Hudson Card. That to me is worrisome. I like Texas's defense and the improvement that they seem to be showing. I don't specifically love anything about Texas Tech. I think they are just feisty enough to be a wrong team at the wrong time for Texas, right?
Yeah.
That this is their first sellout in a few years I saw in Lubbock. It's very surprising to me because that seems like a community that loves Texas Tech, but who knows? It's been a weird few years under Matt Wells. I just think they're catching them at a good time, right? They were close against UTSA for a half, and I just think Tech is going to have more to throw at the Horns. I think Texas may ultimately escape this game, but the line seems odd to me.
I'm very conflicted here because the opponent and situation adjusted numbers for whatever they're worth through 3 weeks, and they're not everything. It's just a data point. They hate the Texas pass defense. Hate the Texas pass defense. And one would think that would pose a problem when you're going up against the Zach Kitley offense.
Right.
Even if they've got their own kinks that they're working through, they're going to throw the crap out of the ball. Tech has 138 passing attempts this season, which is fourth in the FBS behind Purdue, Mississippi State, and, would you believe it, Northwestern.
Wild. But yes, I do believe it now.
The Tech defense has also been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
They profile as a solid top 40 caliber team here. So I remain conflicted. On one hand, I do believe Texas is just better team.
Sure.
I don't care what the numbers say. This is still the team that almost beat Alabama 2 weeks ago. Like, we need to give them some respect in that regard. But at the same time, remember what I said way back when.
At home with a different quarterback to start the game. Yeah.
Different quarterback. It's still a pretty good team. I also harken back to something I've said. If you're going to bring up old stuff from the show, I could bring up my old rule of betting.
Which is?
Be wary of the de facto national championship game.
True.
Be wary of the de facto national championship game. Texas Tech might play, 8 other games this year?
True.
None of them are going to mean as much as this because it's Texas.
Yeah.
None of them are going to mean as much.
Well,
I think they're...
I was just going to say, in piggybacking on what you're saying, Texas and Oklahoma are going on a bit of a blood tour right now in the Big 12. I'm not saying that they're going to lose games because fan bases are upset that Texas and Oklahoma are leaving to the SEC and altering the landscape of the Big 12. Big 12 will be fine, but certainly altering the landscape and making a statement that, like, we don't believe in this conference. We believe that there are greener pastures to our southeast. So I just believe that if you're looking at intangible elements, that the spice factor from Big 12 home crowds when hosting Texas and Oklahoma might be a little bit more pronounced. Now,
more tortillas getting thrown this week.
More tortillas, just a little more electricity. And so there is something about that with this beginning the blood tour for Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12 that I just think I'm factoring in. I'm not saying it's going to decide wins and losses per se, but if you're looking at factors, the spiciness is going to be there in Lubbock.
The Yakos, home dog of the week.
Give
me Tech plus a 6.5.
That swayed you, swung you.
I mean, I'm nothing if not a blank slate when I come to these calls with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing if not a blank slate. I'm an impressionable young mind. I come in with some supposition.
Yep.
Some of it is confirmed. Some of it I'm talked off the ledge. But I'm with you on Tech. We agree 4 straight games now. Let's move on.
By the way, the other thing to point out just in picking these games, Tech might have the most accurate data of because they've played Houston and NC State. Not a lot of teams have played 2 legit top 40-ish teams.
I feel like I trusted a little bit more with Tech.
Now they lost and didn't do much on offense to NC State. And really tried to lose to Houston as well, to be clear. But they won that clunker. That's something.
4 o'clock on Fox, your Oregon Ducks, minus 6.5 on the road at Wazoo. I read a lot on this game.
Okay.
I felt like I read 1,000 times. It's like the reporter trope of the week. You know, Pullman's a tough place to play. Pullman's a tough place to play. And it is a tough place to play.
It definitely. I have that scar tissue.
I don't mean to throw shade. It is a tough place to play. My supposition, though, on Wazoo is that they're not that good. And that this line feels well.
Oh, I don't know.
So,
okay.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I think their defense is kind of interesting. I don't know what you feel about Cam Ward at the moment in this offense. I think there's a little bit of sloppiness to this offense at the moment, but I'm intrigued enough by their line and intrigued enough by the upside, I suppose, of this offense to not write them off as a bad team or, disappointing team. Defense is interesting. I think the front gets after it a little bit. They're fast, a little bit undersized, but fast. Man. I am too haunted by Pullman visits. If you remember when game day was there for Gardner Minshew, and there were all sorts of, and they just, Justin Herbert came out super flat. That was the time when like Mario Cristobal teams were just coming out super flat in first quarters, first halves. And, maybe the crossover of Marcus Arroyo as the offensive coordinator didn't help, but there's a lot of scar tissue there for me. Now, different coaching staff, different quarterback, not as good as Justin Herbert, different quarterback, different general strategy to me on both sides of the ball. And to come out like they did last week, as emotionally and spiritually and whatever prepared that they showed themselves to be from the gun, from the onset of that game. Now, it was in Autzen. It was against a BYU team coming off of a tough game. I'm going to underthink this one and say Oregon covers. I think when you have the ability with this offensive line to open up the kinds of lanes that I think if they were able to open it against BYU, I think they're going to be able to open it against Wazoo. And I think there's going to be opportunities in play action. The defense improved against the edge. They were lining linebackers up out wide to beat those edge blocks, whatever. I'm going Oregon to cover here. Just because if I am picking Wazoo, I'm saying it's at Wazoo. It's a difficult, weird place. But I don't feel strongly enough about any one element. If I believe Oregon to be a top 15-ish team, which they're ranked right, I think right at 15 right now in the AP poll. I think the way that they can get business done is a way that they can win this game by 17 to 21 points.
As an Oregon fan,
yeah,
do you feel like after the big loss in week 1 to Georgia that a lot of folks out there who aren't tuned into Pac-12/Oregon football wrote Oregon off, just forgot about them because they got beat as badly as they did?
I think they wrote Oregon off as like, well, they're probably not going to go 10-2, 11-1 and end up in a New Year's 6 conversation.
Yeah.
So yes, when you do that in front of however many million, 6-7 million people watch that game and saw the gulf, the 49-3 gulf between the two programs, I think the most optimistic Oregon fan would say, Stan Lanning's first game, nobody's in the stratosphere within the Pac-12 of Georgia. So it doesn't really matter. Now, losing 49-17 would have been a little more encouraging. Finding the end zone a couple times would have been more encouraging. But I think the further we get from that game and the way that Oregon has responded, this is an Oregon team that probably would not have covered in a winning effort against BYU and even Eastern Washington. They didn't cover against Stony Brook last year. So I think that the manner in which they have bounced back is encouraging enough to the point where you can say, yes, they lost to Georgia in that manner, but they can still go 9-3, 10-2.
I mean, Georgia's just such a funhouse mirror.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they make everybody look horrible. And for that to be the lasting impression of Oregon, even through last week, I think is really doing them a disservice. I think it's a good team.
Yeah.
And I think the way that Dan Lanning had that team fired up last week in particular, big game against a good team in BYU, that was really impressive. We still don't fully know what this team's going to be, but I don't know. And you have a better sense than I do. It just feels to me like they're pretty good, and they're going to hammer Wazoo, and I'm going to lock this one up.
Wow.
Lock of the week.
All right.
Yeah, I'm in on Oregon right now.
Okay.
I'm feeling it. We agree. 5 for 5. Wow.
I think the kind of team, other than Georgia, the kind of team within the Pac-12 or otherwise that can really take advantage of this Oregon team is with a passing attack that is fully formed and can shred you in multiple ways. Oregon was not prepared to be tested on the edge like they were against Georgia, but between the injuries that BYU had and Jaron Hall being a little bit skittish reading the defense, Oregon's got a great corner in Christian Gonzalez, but and a pretty good safety in Bennett Williams, but I don't think they have a lot in the way of the secondary and in the way of a pass rush. I just don't think Wazoo's that team to take advantage.
Yeah, I agree. We agree. 5 for 5. Okay. 7 p.m. ESPN. Arkansas against Texas A&M. Neutral site game in Jerry's World. Texas A&M favored by 1.5 points. Wow. I was hung up on this one for a while.
Okay, tell me why.
I don't know how you felt about this one, but I feel like we know which team has more talent because we've been beaten over the head with it for the last 6 months. Texas A&M and this monster recruiting class. But if I asked you right now, which team is better? Which team is better, Dan? What would you say?
If Arkansas performed a little bit better against Missouri State, it wouldn't be much of a question. The way a team beats Arkansas, succeeds against Arkansas, is probably taking advantage of this pass defense, especially down the field. We know a good amount about Texas A&M now, that they've played a couple of decent teams in App State and Miami. this is not necessarily how they're beating teams going downfield successfully. So
I'm laughing because I'm with you. We're very much on the same train of thought.
Yeah,
this week. And, the Arkansas thing is fascinating. It's a fascinating story for me to watch because, we tend to look at projections now because the data starts to get a little bit better. And there are any number of different ways that you can slice and dice the first couple weeks of the season. But Arkansas is like a true toss-up team. The variance on their possible results moving forward, it's a pretty wide spectrum. I saw one set of projections that has them at 7-5. But the win probability is all like 45 to 55%. A lot of games that are a true toss-up. So, there's an opportunity here for a really special season for Arkansas if they can get that pass defense sorted out. If they can get some of these kinks that everybody's working through,
right,
that we know Arkansas has. It's an opportunity for them. I don't know if you've got your Ryan Gosling sound, your opportunity at the ready, but that's how I feel about this Hogs team. For sure, the next 4 weeks of the season are going to be very, very critical. For context, Arkansas won this game 20-10 last season.
Yeah.
I just kept coming back to the fact that A&M's offense has been really bad this season. I don't have a ton of faith in Max Johnson to make it more explosive. That's just not the kind of player he is.
Right.
And I have a hard time believing that it's just going to get better overnight.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm picking Arkansas outright.
Yeah, neutral field, go with the better quarterback. If you want to underthink it, and that's KJ Jefferson, go with the team that seemed to have all the answers except for one long Isaiah Spiller run last year. Different teams, totally understood. Texas A&M has just had a very short season already of a lot of upheaval between suspensions and injuries and quarterback changes and calls for complete overhauls of the offense because of an App State performance. App State's a fun team, not a team that has had an incredible defense all year long. So,
No.
I don't know. There's something more consistent to me about where Arkansas is, despite needing the punt return that they needed against Missouri State and the Bears last week. I'm going Arkansas here because I think they're on more stable ground. So, all things being relatively equal, yeah, woo pig.
6 in a row, you and I have picked the same.
What are you
This
going to do?
might be unprecedented.
Yeah, we spent
Crazy.
a lot of time around each other.
7:30 ABC. It is Wisconsin on the road at Ohio State. This is a big point spread.
Yeah.
18.5 points. These teams have not played since the 2019 Big Ten championship game. A lot's changed since then for Ohio State, of course. Wisconsin basically the same now. They're kind of the same.
They haven't been to a lot of many Big Ten championship games that they've been to since. Yeah,
they're kind of the same, but with worse players.
Right.
Kind of the same. So I'm curious about the matchup because I think it'll be an interesting data point. Again, we talk a lot about trying to get something we can sink our teeth into and figure out what these teams are. I don't think Wisconsin poses a real threat here to Ohio State. And I'm going to rue the day that I say that, not just about Wisconsin, but about the random team that challenges Ohio State this year because Ohio State always has a random team that challenges them.
Yeah.
Ohio State last season had trouble with physical opponents. Clearly, this was an area of focus for them in the offseason. Let's see what they can do against a team like Wisconsin that we know wants to play a physical brand of football. Ultimately, they have way too many ways to win here. Ultimately, I can't get past Wisconsin losing at home to Wazoo. Like, come on.
An extremely winnable game, by the way, for the Badgers.
Extremely winnable game. They
a lot
lose
of
to
mental
Wazoo.
mistakes. Not great the way they lost that game.
So in terms of data points and things that give you the cause for pause, our favorite pet charity, there you go. That loss against Wazoo is a pretty big one to me. I don't think they threaten Ohio State. I think Ohio State is far and away the better team here. I'm looking at the line. 18.5 is a big number, but I don't have any real good reason to go with Wisconsin from what I've seen this season. It's just I know exactly what the offense is going to do. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the quarterback situation. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the offensive situation that they're going to do something creative. They're going to pull like a rabbit out of their hat suddenly and be this oop-de-oop offense. It's just not what they are. So I guess Ohio State, minus 18.5.
Well, okay. So the case for Wisconsin covering is some sort of belief and faith in this defense, grinding Ohio State down enough to force field goals instead of touchdowns at all points, right? That Ohio State
like Notre Dame did. Like Notre Dame did.
Correct. Right. That was an 11-point game. And so if you're going to say, well, Notre Dame isn't not Wisconsin in the way that they've struggled sometimes, especially on offense. By the way, two fan bases who might reference Jack Cohn with the following preamble. In retrospect, Jack Cohn.
The Cohn Zone was not a terrible place to be.
No. No.
By the way, Jack Cohn played on that 2019 team.
Yeah.
And Jack Cohn had really good numbers for Wisconsin.
Did he not take them to the Rose Bowl? Like, look, there were limitations to what they were able to do downfield with Jack Cohn.
But he wasn't as bad as we made him out to be. At least it's as not as bad as I made him out to be.
I mean, had them within a couple minutes of beating Oregon to win that Rose Bowl. That's fine. A totally serviceable quarterback who doesn't need, if he doesn't need to be counted on to put a team on his back. Again, which both I think Wisconsin and Notre Dame would be thrilled to have at the moment. I'm taking Ohio State because I have to do too much mental gymnastics. I have to contort myself in ways to say Wisconsin has a good defense. And the problem is Wisconsin's offense has too many ways to hang its own defense out to dry. And if Ohio State's defense is as improved as we believe them to be, because especially you tingle for Jim Knowles, I think eventually, what is the number again? Did you say 18?
18 and a half, yeah.
This definitely has 38-13 potential. It does.
Yeah.
It just does at this point because again, you remember the Notre Dame game, no Jackson Smith and Jigba for the majority of that game. And that multiple guys are getting more comfortable in the receiver room for Ohio State. The defense is gelling more and more within this defense. Obviously, that's where defense gels. I don't know. I think we're at the point where we have a better formed team. If Wisconsin had like a first-year quarterback who had shown potential but not fully there, you'd be like, well, you can gamble on like having a breakthrough game and as a gamer in a big moment. We sort of know what Graham Mertz is and isn't at this point. So in Columbus, I'm taking the Bucks here by 3 touchdowns plus.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
He's going to play.
Yeah.
He's going to be back.
I know we got in there
Julian
last
Fleming.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, Julian Fleming. So it sounds, and I know CJ Stroud made some comments this week about how the offense feels a little bit better now that those guys are back. So the one takeaway I had, and then we'll move on here about that Notre Dame game. Once Ohio State got rolling, keep in mind, this is the first game of the year for them too. Once they got rolling, back half of the third quarter, all throughout the fourth quarter, there was definitely a different vibe to that game. It definitely started feeling like this is a good Notre Dame defense, but also this is a really good Ohio State offense, and they're just starting to get up to speed. So I think 38-13 is what you said?
38-13. That's what I have.
Feels about right. Do we agree on 7 straight games?
By the way, I did see, I think it was Columbus Dispatch, Trey Henderson will be available, Trevion Henderson for Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily full go, expected to start. It's available. Sometimes that means if 5 running backs get hurt. So I don't think that makes a huge difference because I think there's just still enough there in that running back room to, I don't know, turn out 5-6 yards a carry if need be. That's easier said than done against a Wisconsin defense, but I think there's enough to replicate 85% of Trey Henderson's ability. So something.
7 for 7. We're going to rattle through a bunch of other games here.
I've overthought all year long. I'm underthinking this week.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, good friend. SolidVerbalLive.com. We've got a show coming up in New York City, Dan. College football, the game show, presented by the Solid Verbal, an interactive experience, don't sit in the splash zone, you can smell my hair with the price of admission.
Wow. On the record.
Just don't be weird. Don't be weird about it.
College football,
we have an understanding here. We have an understanding here. If you get in the door, you can just get a passing whiff if you want to. Just don't be weird. Don't be weird about it.
Yeah, we're doing a college football game show in New York. And it's all about
any lunge, any kind of lunge or sudden movement towards me, knuckle sandwich.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Knuckle sandwich. These are weathered fists. But SolidVerbalLive.com, we're doing a game show spin on things, are we not?
Yes. All the topics are from the 2022 season. So front of mind, you can be very, very smart because there's not much that you need to dig into the memory banks for. So, yeah, college football, the game show, solidverballive.com. If you're in New Jersey, if you're in Pennsylvania, if you're in Connecticut, wherever you are surrounding New York, or if you're in New York, come on out. Got a couple special guests lined up. It's going to be a fantastic time. solidverballive.com.
Other games here that we need to mention before we put a bow on this here show. High noon, the Iron Skillet game, the 101st Iron Skillet game between TCU and SMU. SMU is at home. TCU is a 2-point favorite. A very early homecoming for Sonny Dykes, who just left SMU to take over at TCU. Definitely going to have some commentary in this one, Dan, about, Sonny Dykes may have some insider info on this team. Sonny Dykes.
Sure.
Sonny Dykes knows the scouting report on this SMU squad. I don't know where to stand on SMU. I was really high on SMU coming into the season. I feel like I've come down off of that a little bit. TCU, to me, 2-point favorite in this game. Max Duggan's been good.
But what is that?
I think I'm going TCU.
Yeah, Frogs have played precisely nobody.
They played Tarleton, okay? They play.
Choosing
How
that
dare
over
you,
Colorado. Wow. I'm going TCU as well. I'm going TCU because of the mysterious factor. SMU and the way they lost to, who did they lose to? Maryland last week. Yeah. Maryland with all the penalties. Still
the
didn't do them
loser, Maryland.
Elite loser, Maryland.
Talked about for years now.
Who has Michigan this week? I'm going the mystery of TCU. I'm not crazy high. I don't think the underlying numbers mean anything with the Frogs right now, given those two opponents. But at a certain point, you're like, do you trust Sonny Dykes or Rhett Lashley in this closely contested game more? And I think I trust Sonny Dykes a little bit more. Even if the defense is below average, I don't know. I'm going to go with the Frog mystery.
This is crazy.
I know.
Just met you.
I know. I'm underthinking.
Here's my number. Call me maybe, TCU.
Love it.
You mentioned Maryland. High noon. Fox, Maryland at Michigan. Michigan favored by 16.5. This line's come down, which means people are betting Maryland. Michigan won by 41 on the road last year, Dan. Is there any look-ahead potential if you are Michigan with Iowa on deck?
No. I think because Michigan, other than the quarterback narrative in splitting starts or whatever between J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara, they've just sort of been off radar because they've played nobody. We should be making fun of Michigan's early schedule more. So Michigan would be a prime example of a team that Vegas is saying, we think they're good. They might only be okay. They might be excellent. And so this would be an example, I think, of what could be an inflated line. Now, if Maryland did just a little bit more on defense and limited the penalties just a little bit more, I'd be inclined to roll with the Terps because of nobody having any idea exactly what Michigan is or isn't at this point. They blew out a bunch of teams. They should blow out if they're really good. But also, we've seen a number of teams do that and then face reality and win by 6 or something. I think it's likelier that Michigan covers this spread. I think it's likelier because the offense seems more explosive with the development of offensive skill guys. The defense has stepped in nicely, we think, and we know, I think with certainty, that J.J. McCarthy gives this offense a higher ceiling. So when you see lines like this that I'm not positive on, the benefit of the doubt to me goes with the confidence with which they're playing on offense, granted against nobodies, all due respect. Hawaii, Colorado, and UConn? Colorado State, UConn. I think I have Michigan winning here by 28. I think I have this 45, would it be 45-17? That even might be a lot. 42-13, something in that range. I think I have Michigan comfortable. The game's in Ann Arbor.
Yep.
Comfortably winning this game. Sorry.
I think I'm with you. We agree 9 for 9.
Now, we could be Talia believers, and say,
That's
look,
bad.
He's been the
That's
starter
so
for a
bad.
while. Raheem Jarrett is quietly one of the best 8-10 wide receivers in the country. Yeah. He's really good. He's really real good. Fast and he's really good. And so if that tandem could terrorize Michigan, I could see them, that they're unstoppable in the way that a bigger version perhaps of Aiden O'Connell, Charlie Jones, where they just can't figure out this duo. But the problem is how much Maryland wounds itself. So I'm still going Michigan here.
Yeah, Raheem Jarrett, by the way, 17.8 yards per catch.
He's ridiculous. He's absolutely
ridiculous. He's also
ridiculous.
dropped 21% of the balls that
Not ideal.
Which is not ideal, no. But he is a good receiver in some sense. We agree again, 9 for 9. The real drama here is now which will be the first game that we disagree on. Could it be Duke at Kansas? FS1, high noon. Duke at Kansas. Kansas favored by now 7.5 points. I am on Duke.
Okay.
I like Duke a little bit more when they were getting 9 points earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
But that line's come down because I think other people have seen what I saw, and that is that the Duke defense has actually been really good. Now, there are qualifiers there. I get it. But I'm going to go with my spidey sense here that folks are really high in Kansas. After a 3-0 start, everyone's excited about the Jayhawks, and why not? They've been in the gutter for a generation.
Mm-hmm.
I am rooting for both these teams throughout the course of the season, but I'm going to go with Duke defense. I'm going to go with Riley Leonard, who actually looks pretty good this season for Duke. I think Kansas wins the game, but if you're giving me a touchdown in that little hook, I'm going to go Kansas. I'm going to go Duke.
You think it's going to be another crazy high-scoring back and forth, essentially?
I think there's possibility of that, yeah.
Man, I don't like either one of these teams with any sort of definitive.
So take the points.
Big line.
Take the points.
Okay. In the interest of disagreeing with you, because
don't disagree for the sake.
I'm not disagreeing for the sake of you, but there is something that I don't think you took into your calculation. You didn't program into your TI-83.
I find that hard to believe, but go ahead.
Only one of these teams is infected with transitive Nebraskaitis, and that's Duke, right?
It is Duke.
That we thought Northwestern, pretty good. They beat Nebraska and Ireland. And then Duke snuck by Northwestern, who then lost to Southern Illinois. So if there is a team... Now, West Virginia competitive against Pitt, who we believe to be good. West Virginia loses to Kansas, right? Houston, I think we still believe to be pretty good. Not as good, perhaps. Not a top 25 team. Lose to Kansas. So that if there is a team who's able to win this game by 10 points, 13 points, and I still have a lot of questions about Kansas's defense.
Defense?
Right, totally correct. That there is something more misleading about Duke's season to me than what Kansas's season. Like, Kansas went down 14-0, right? Not phased. Like, I just feel like Kansas has had to react to more, and they don't have the transitive Nebraska infection. So I'm going Kansas here to cover the spread.
Well, when you put it like that, God, I don't feel great about the Duke pick. But to your point, I don't feel great about either of these.
No,
teams.
I mean, this would be
3-0. Look, the fact that we're talking about this game
Yeah.
in our rundown of big games in week 4, in and of itself is a surprise and a great story in college football. I'm excited that we get this game at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of either of these two teams, so I'm just going to enjoy it. I think I'm inclined to take points here. I've been impressed by what I've seen on the Duke side, even though Kansas has definitely gotten a little bit more of the hype, if you want to call it that, in the early going. So finally, at long last, 1 out of 10, we disagree.
Yeah, I'm still wobbling atop my narrative scaffolding with that pick, to be clear. Like, I'm reaching, and it's not super, it's not on solid ground. It's very shaky. But yeah, I'm going to stay wobbling atop that narrative scaffolding.
3:30 ESPN Plus. We've got James Madison, the Maddies, on the road at App State.
Lock of the week.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
My second of four locks this week.
Quad box.
App State.
Okay.
App State. App State, a much more proven commodity. They are much more battle tested. The Maddies are brand new. They're not the actual Maddies, but that's what I'm calling them. Brand new to FBS. The counterpoint, I guess if you want a counterpoint, it's that there's got to be a crash at some point for App State. I mean,
LOR, baby.
What an emotional roller coaster this thing has been for App State through 3 weeks of the year. But they're much more battle tested, Dan. They're much more battle tested. We still have not had a great look against James Madison against anybody really good.
Of course not.
And so I favor the team at home that's been there, that's played these games. I'm sure James Madison there's a little bit of a de facto national championship thing going on with them, but I just think App State's so much better. I'm going to go Mountaineers.
Well, the game,
I'm going to lock it up.
It's in Boone, is it not?
It's in Boone.
Yeah,
it's in Boone.
So it's not the de facto national championship at home. It's not a national championship crowd for the Dukies. I'm going JMU. I'm going against your lock, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
To get to this point, App State at 2-1. So they jump out to the big lead against North Carolina. They storm back only to come up just short against the Tar Heels, right?
Yeah.
So they give up how many points in that game? 60 some odd points? What was the final?
63 to 61 was the final.
So they gave up 63 points at home. Yes? So their season has been giving up 60 plus, going on the road to beat a Texas A&M team, vastly more talented and should have beaten App State by many more points if they were, I think, better coached and better developed. But they win. They win that game, and it's incredible and an inspiration, whatever. And then they need a specialized Hail Mary strategy at home to beat Troy. Now, we could say JMU coming up as an FCS team in their first season, and we don't really have a good read on them. Their opponents haven't been anything that we can really take data on the Dukes with any sort of grain of salt. I don't know, man. It's too tough a way to go through the season needing weirdness every week. And so I am going JMU here. I'm going with Curt Cignetti's dudes. By the way, that dude's been through it. Curt Cignetti, Alabama, Elon. He's been everywhere. Frank Cignetti's brother. Wins a bunch. I think there's winning DNA. I'm going to go with it. I'm not a big believer, but there's something odd right now this year about the Sun Belt. And I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be weird. But I think it's a little bit LOR right now for App State because I don't trust that defense, and I do trust JMU's offense, I think. So give me the Dukes here with a little bit of faith. Give me JMU.
The top graded passer, according to our friends at PFF, Todd Centio, quarterback of the Matties.
The Colorado State transfer. Yeah. Again, who did they play? They played Middle Tennessee and who?
I have to pull
JMU, you can pull it up, but I know it's nobody. I think it's an FCS team.
It was right. It was Middle Tennessee and Norfolk State.
Yeah, your dudes at Norfolk.
Yeah,
I'm getting pretty good at saying that word, right? Norfolk.
I feel like I've grown. Let's move on. We got a bunch of other games to get through. Let's try and rattle through these as quickly as we can. 3:30 Big Ten Network. Minnesota -3 at Michigan State. Who you got?
That's in East Lansing, is it not?
In East Lansing.
All right. So the sleep bank. Not applicable here.
No, not applicable.
Minnesota's played a whole bunch of nobody, have they not?
Correct.
Their numbers are incredible. The defense has been lights out. Tanner Morgan's in his 14th year. I am going to go Michigan State here. I am going to go, let's not overreact to Michigan State might be kind of borderline trash in certain regards. Minnesota just lost their number one receiver for the year, right? Chris Ottman-Bell.
Yeah, bummer.
So that changes a little bit of calculus downfield, I would say, for Minnesota. Still like Mo Ibrahim. I still like their ability and their efficiency. I'm going to say, let's not overreact. Michigan State is still at least decent at home. And if Michigan State, look, the number was not indicative. Like, they got worked over by Washington last week. I'm still going to say, let's not go crazy and writing off Sparty quite yet. I like Minnesota a good deal, but the fact that it's in East Lansing, I think there's a good bounce back potential. I'm going to go Michigan State by 5.5. They can't win by 5.5. I can go by 5 or 6.
If there were 65 confidence points to wager on games this week, I would put one wholesome point on this game. I have no idea.
This is really tricky because we have nothing on Minnesota.
No, I'm going to go Minnesota.
Okay.
I'm going to go the elder statesman Tanner Morgan here. I believe Minnesota's been the better team per the efficiency numbers, for whatever that is worth.
Right.
They played 3 bad teams. Yeah. It's hard to get a true gauge on this squad, but I'm going to go Minnesota.
Okay.
We disagree again. 3:30 ABC. Here we go. Notre Dame at North Carolina. This one has gone back and forth between Notre Dame favored by a point and a half to North Carolina favored by a point and a half. At time of recording, Dan, Carolina favored by a point and a half. I ask the important question. What happens when the stoppable force meets the movable object?
Yeah.
The stoppable force being the Notre Dame offense, the movable force being the North Carolina defense. The logic here, if you are betting on Notre Dame, has to be that the defense is good enough to get a couple stops and that the Carolina defense essentially is not.
Right.
My gut, when I saw the matchup, my gut was that there's no way Notre Dame's winning this game. But I have read so many differing opinions on this one that even though Notre Dame's my team that I watch and read about religiously, I honestly have no idea what to think here. So talk me through it. What do you think?
I'm going North Carolina here. I am going with, God, I don't like their defense at all.
It's so bad.
They got a bye last week, though, did they not? Yeah, North Carolina did. Yeah, they played week 0. Florida A&M, at App State, at Georgia State, and they've had a bye before this Notre Dame game. And so
3-0, by the way. 3-0 North Carolina.
3-0. I think they're at home with the better quarterback, and even if they're not able to light up this Notre Dame defense, which I think very few, if any, teams are going to be able to do, I still think it's a very good defense. Like if they scored 28 points, 27 points, 23 points, is Notre Dame's offensive line improved in that second half, right? They were able to open up lanes more often than they were against Marshall.
Yeah.
And the first half of the Cal game. I mean, you can underthink this one and say Notre Dame's just going to run straight at North Carolina. I think that's easier to address than a totally whack pass rush and secondary.
Yeah, I'm going to go Notre Dame. I'm going to go Notre Dame, and here's why.
Okay.
I would have expected North Carolina to be favored by like 6 points in this game.
Okay.
Given what we've seen out of
But
Notre
you're too
Dame.
close. You're too close to Notre Dame.
I'm too close to it. So if you're listening to this at home, honestly, don't take my word
Right.
on this game at all. I beg you. Please do not.
Right.
Dude, if you're going to bet this game, go on your own thoughts and your own analysis, not mine, because I'm really, really in the dark here.
Sure.
I don't know what to think. All I could go on is the fact that I felt like this line should be higher. I felt like there's no reason to think that Notre Dame should even be in this game, given where their offense is at. But there were glimmers in the second half last week. Mm-hmm. It was a much different team in the second half of that game. And I don't feel like the defense that Notre Dame's going up against here with North Carolina is going to be in any position to punish them. You know, like there are definitely things that have happened for Notre Dame on the margins against Ohio State, against Marshall, against Cal, that teams with better defenses have been able to capitalize on. I don't know if North Carolina's that team, even on the road. So I'll go Notre Dame outright, beating North Carolina, I guess, going into their bye week.
I don't hate the pick. I really don't. Because North Carolina's defense, it wasn't just that was a weird game against App State. No, they've been allowing yardage and points and the ability to stay on the field to everybody. They've been allotting a lot of offense. They've been very generous with their personal trainers. They're making sure you're getting in shape on offense.
All right.
I'm going to go Notre Dame here as well.
My man.
I am. I was all over the place. I'm going Notre Dame here.
FS1, 7 p.m. Iowa minus 7.5 at Rutgers. The point spread here is one thing. The total is another. This is the lowest total. The over-under is 35.5, the lowest total that college football has seen in 6 seasons. If the if the total closes at 34 or less, it will be the lowest total since the year 2000.
The year 2000.
Expectations are not high for the offensive output in this game. My hunch is you can already pencil in a little Dvorak action when we record on Sunday.
Yeah.
Let me say again what everybody needs to hear. I said it yesterday. Going to say it again. A lot of folks are going to be pulling for Rutgers here.
Sure.
You want Rutgers to win? I'm with you. Rutgers has been a great story. It's important we live in reality and not fantasy land.
Okay.
Rutgers is not going to move the ball on Iowa at all. I'm not sure Iowa can move it on Rutgers. We've seen their offense, all right? I'm not saying Iowa is like this behemoth. They're very good on defense. Rutgers is not a good offense at all. Do not go into this game thinking that Rutgers is going to suddenly be good on offense. They're going to be able to move the ball against one of the better.
Yeah.
Or decent or anything. They're not going to be able to move the ball against Iowa. Rutgers is not scoring more than 10 points. I'd be surprised if they score more than 6. So for that reason, I'm out on Rutgers. I'm in on Iowa minus whatever here against Rutgers on the road. 7.5, 7.5. Give me Iowa.
In on Iowa minus whatever? I might isolate that clip.
Iowa minus whatever, baby.
Everything you said is very sound. Rutgers lock of the week.
What? Do you really want me to play the sound?
Play.
Lock of the week.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Here's the
Why?
thing. Take the home dog in a slog. It rhymes. It's great. Why would you side with anything Iowa? If this game is, if you're convinced this game is going to be some kind of defensive slog,
I'm not.
You think Iowa's going to comfortably mount an offense on the road against a good defense or a decent
what's
defense?
a slog? I don't think Rutgers is scoring more than, like I said, 10 points. But even if Iowa goes out there and they score 24 points,
Okay.
I don't think that becomes a defensive slog. That's just Iowa football. That would still get you to around that point total, 34, 35 points, and Iowa would cover comfortably.
What the hell is Iowa doing to score points against a decent defense? Still beat
I
up.
don't know. We finally find something we disagree on. I'm just not in on. I mean, Rutgers is a good story. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I'm not pulling for him in this game, but I just don't see it. I don't know how they're moving the ball, how they're winning, how they're even get within 7.5.
If Iowa had an average offense, I know we're living in fantasy land when I say that, they would have beaten Nevada by 70?
Yeah.
23. 23-0. That was the final score. 3 lightning delays later. I just think Nevada's really bad. And
Nevada is really bad, actually.
I am
Very
just
bad.
Again, if Rutgers is able to mount some kind of sloggy defense, I think it's just going to be 13-10. So I like the under a good deal. I wish there were a monsoon. That would really sell it for me. But it's going to be 70 and clear. It's fine. Piscataway on Saturday.
The over-under would be 20.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
All right, we disagree.
Go with the dog and a slog. Home dog and a slog.
8 p.m. on Fox, Kansas State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 13, Dan. There was a hot minute where I think we both would have been into K-State. After what we saw from Oklahoma last week, after what we saw from Kansas State last week, after what we've seen from K-State's offense so far this season, led by one, Adrian Martinez,
Yeah.
I'm officially off the K-State bandwagon. Give me Oklahoma.
K-State might be in the process of making some people some money. The getting might be really good right now in betting against K-State.
To bet against them,
yes,
right?
yes. The getting might be really good that Vegas is not fully locked in on how disastrous this offense may be at times. And against a team like Oklahoma giving 13,
Yep.
yeah, I think Oklahoma wins this game by 3 touchdowns. I really do.
Yeah, I thought about lock of the week here, but I didn't.
And I like
didn't do it.
K-State's defense, which is actually what gave me pause. Not, that offense could get better or something like that, but that the defense is good enough to keep this relatively low scoring. But no, I'm not in on K-State. I think the getting might be good betting against Kansas State right now.
9:30 Pac-12 Network. USC minus 6.5, 7 points on the road at Oregon State, Dan. I'm on Oregon State here.
Okay.
I'm on Oregon State here. This line opened last Sunday, and I saw it at 7, and I grabbed it at 7 right away because I expected that there would be a lot of people hitting Oregon State, that the line would go down. It depends where you look. It hasn't gone down as much as I expected, but in many places right now it's 6.5. So the logic here is I don't trust SC's defense. Their offense is unstoppable. I don't think Oregon State can stop it.
I wouldn't even go that far. I think their offense is really good. I wouldn't go as far as unstoppable, but yeah.
Okay. Even if their offense is really good, I don't really have much faith in Oregon State to stop them. I also don't have much faith in USC's defense to stop Oregon State's offense. My rule of thumb, if we are going based on gut, if we are going based on core beliefs and principles here on Supposition Saturday, take a touchdown in a shootout. I think a lot of points. Oregon State at home, weird place to play. I'm curious to see what SC does away from home in a situation like this against what I believe is a pretty good Pac-12 team. So I'm just going to take the points at home.
Okay. I don't hate that. Another instance, by the way, of some kind of blood tour, right? With Texas going on the road to Texas Tech, and now USC going on the road. This is late night. Well, not late night. The blood tour. It's just like a weird reverse blood tour. I don't like Oregon State's defense. I don't like that Oregon State might be down its best pass-catching weapon in Luke Musgrave, their tight end. I don't like that they don't kick all that well. I don't I don't like their defense. I don't like there are too many things right now for me to feel positive that this is a great opportunity for Oregon State to upset USC.
But isn't that what Oregon State does? Isn't that the sense of false security that you get when you play Oregon State?
But it's also people talking themselves into Oregon State for the sake of talking themselves into Oregon State.
Bill Connolly's got this on a neutral field. USC -3.
Okay. I mean, look, the data we have on the Beavs is pretty good because they've played both and beaten both Fresno State and Boise State. Now, common opponent, USC was relatively close. Jake Haener goes down. Different complexion of that game. I understand all that. I think USC wins this game by 13. I really searched for reasons.
I could see that.
I searched for reasons. I think it's one of those things where I think the Beavs can only hang for so long. I don't like the USC defense. I really don't. I don't know if it's Oregon State's defense that is good enough to get key stops on a 3rd and 7. Do they have that linebacker who can meet Caleb Williams at the edge? Those little things, that talent differential to me is the concern. So I'm going USC for it to be close, but eventually they cover. Maybe it's some sort of backdoor cover, maybe whatever, or front door cover, I guess. Thank you. Sorry, doggos.
Sorry, pups.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going USC here. I really searched, and I hate that. Situationally, Corvallis at night. Nobody's gonna be able to watch this game on the Pac-12 network. I get all that. And I'm going Trojans.
And last game on Saturday that we're gonna cover: 10:30 ESPN. Utah -14 on the road at Arizona State.
Lock of the week.
You got to be kidding me with this line, right? You got 14? Utah's favored by 14. You got to be kidding me. That's it?
I think they destroy them. Yeah.
Oh, I think they kill Arizona State.
Well, to be clear, because there is that rumor, there is that allegation that it was easy to get information on ASU from people within the team and the athletic department because they were trying to submarine Herm Edwards' employment.
Like a WikiLeaks situation.
Right. That maybe that there isn't as much information readily available out there. I don't think it matters. I think Utah wins this game 38-7.
I think Utah is going to hammer Arizona State.
Same.
All right. Thursday, real quick here, 2 other games quickly. Thursday, 7:30 ESPN, West Virginia -1.5 on the road at Virginia Tech.
I guess.
-3, -0.5. And West Virginia is a small favorite.
I guess West Virginia. I guess.
I'm going Virginia Tech.
Okay. Stanford, Washington, anything there? Late game?
I'd probably go points. I don't know.
Letdown spot for Washington. I don't think Stanford's good. I'm going Washington, though. I think they win by a couple touchdowns.
Here's my other lock, by the way.
Lock of the week.
Friday at 7 o'clock, Virginia at Syracuse. You talked about making a lot of money betting against K-State.
Yeah.
How about making a lot of money betting against Virginia?
The weirdly bad Who offense? Yeah.
They're really bad. I am out on Virginia. I am fully in on Garrett Shredder. Syracuse -10, my 4th lock of the week.
That a letdown spot for Cuse. Letdown spot for the Cuse.
No. They're better. They're just better.
Virginia weirdly improves on defense and gets worse on offense, returning a quarterback, returning good receivers. But yeah, that's a stay away from me. But if I had to make a pick, I guess I'd go Cuse.
That's all I got, Dan. That was a meaty slate of Week 4 games. Maybe no obvious headliners, but those are the weeks that get you here on Supposition Saturday. On what was yours?
Serpentine, shout! Serpentine!
Serpentine
Saturday. Yeah, drop that big stanky drum and fife real quick, and we'll run through this. Quivering, queasy. Columbia, Georgetown, Hornets Nest Field. Hornets Nest, that is multi-sport field. Give me the Hoyas. Ty, your read.
They changed the name of multi-sport field. Did you see somebody tweeted us about that?
I never want to pay attention to those tweets.
Where it's always and forever multi-sport field.
Yeah.
We go Georgetown at home. That's just the way it goes. 1 p.m., Lafayette at Penn.
In your backyard.
Yeah, my backyard. Or going I'm going Quakers. I never picked
I'm going Yetis. Believe.
1 p.m. Holy Cross, the Crusaders won a couple weeks ago on that Hail Mary against Buffalo. On the road at Colgate. Gators pretty good this year, too. This is like the featured matchup in the Pat League this week? Give me the Gators.
Holy Cross by 4 touchdowns.
2 p.m., Fordham on the road at Ohio. Fordham wants nothing to do with one of the brothers O'Rourke. But
I like that you added the O. It's just Rourke. Yeah, I think it's just Rourke.
Give me Ohio. Give me the Bobcats.
The O is for Ohio, I guess. I am going Fordham here. The Rams, New York's one true team. Give me Fordham. And finally, Lehigh Princeton tie.
You're asking me?
I'm asking
you. Know the answer.
Okay,
You don't even have to ask. You know I go Princeton.
You're going Tigers. I'm going Princeton as well.
All righty. Woo! There you go.
That's a show.
That is a show. We've had a number of folks watching us live on verballers.com. If you like the show, if you want to support what we do, verballers.com is where it's at. You get access to this show a little bit early. You also can vote in the Verballer Top 10 poll, which is, as I said, maybe not the very first poll to come out every Sunday morning, but clearly the most important.
Yes, agree.
Clearly the most important. You also get access to our Discord server, which I know we've talked about time and again, but it really is a cool place to hang out and just be amongst the college football public. Verballers.com.
It's not the college football public. It's the college football glitterati behind the velvet rope.
If you must be out and about this Saturday, check out our good friends over at the College Football Blitz. Dan, it is the NFL Red Zone for college football. 12 hours of coverage. It starts every Saturday at noon Eastern. It runs all the way through midnight Eastern time. They got to do a shift change about midway through because eventually, even though speed runs Stevie Hartzell,
the best.
Even though they, even though they gas him up early in the morning. I'm getting a little choked up here. The voice is running out of gas.
That's okay.
Even though they get Stevie all juiced up here in time for this thing at 12 noon, and he puts in a good shift, eventually he runs out of steam.
How could he not?
This thing is awesome. I say it every week. I mean it every week. Available for free in the Varsity Network app or over on ESPNU Radio Channel 84 on Sirius XM. Limited commercial interruption, only 3 commercial breaks per hour, 56 minutes of play-by-play coverage every hour. What they do is they zoom in. They give you hometown audio feed, in many cases on both sides of the game, when there's something going on.
All gas, no brakes.
Right? They just go in, tell you who's scoring, what's going on, touchdowns as they happen. You get that local flavor. College Football Blitz. Check it out.
Do it.
Daniel, I believe that's all we have for this week.
That's all I have, though I did just find out my wife is going to be out of town when Carly Rae Jepsen is in town.
Oh, no.
I know. Just me solo. Wow. Just me solo. Baby.
It's an old man with earplugs.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Yeah. I'm not writing anything off. I can find somebody, but
you could find somebody to go with you.
Hey, so do you want to see Carly Rae Jepsen with me this Saturday? And I'll bring the earplugs. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's $75 plus fees, and you can go see Carly Rae Jepsen with me, Dan. Yeah.
SolidVerbalLive.com is where you can come see us live. October the 7th, College Football, the game show. Going to be fun in New York City. We appreciate everybody bearing with us here. Long show, but we're excited for week 4. In the meantime, for that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt. Thanks for hanging in. Talk to you soon. Stay solid.
Peace.